I mean, I'll give you one example from C.L.R. James. C.L.R. James was a Trinidadian, a black man, well-educated, didn't go to university. He became a kind of sports journalist and a writer of fiction. And at the age of 30, in the 1930s, traveled to London, where for the first time in his life he became exposed to Marxist writing, mainly through association with industrial workers in Lancashire. He went to Lancashire because the most famous cricketer of the day was a Trinidadian called Leary Constantine, and Leary Constantine sort of put him up, and that was his kind of bridgehead into English society. And as a result of this, he started reading Marxist work, and within a space of about 2 or 3 years, he became the leading Trotskyist politician and writer in Britain. He wrote the first English-language history of the Fourth International, the Trotskyist international political movement. But more than anything else, he published a book called The Black Jacobins in 1938. And this book was an attempt to rescue from historical amnesia the slave revolution in Haiti at the end of the 18th century. That is, when he was writing 140 years before. It was called at the time San Domingo. It's the large island that contains the Dominican Republic and Haiti today. It was divided between the French and the Spanish, and it's still Francophone and Hispanophone countries. And this slave colony of San Domingo was the strongest and richest and most powerful producer of sugar by slave plantation means in the Caribbean at the time. It accounted for a very large proportion of British profits from the slave trade, since the British dominated that sector. It was much more powerful as an economy than, let's say, Jamaica at the time, which was the most important British colony. Now, what James was trying to do in this book was principally to argue that Africans would win their independence from colonial rule, that colonial empire would be ended soon. And he was writing that in the 1930s, at a time when nobody seriously agreed with that proposition. It seemed to be a long way away. And the reason why he went to study this revolution in Haiti was to show that black people had historically been responsible for major changes in world society, and that indeed this San Domingo revolution of the 1790s deserved to be seen as an equal to the American and French revolutions of the same period, but it had been essentially buried from historical memory. One of the reasons for this, of course, was that Haiti, after its independence, lapsed into a condition which it still suffers today, of fragmentation, impoverishment, and so forth. And that's part of the story. But the story of the revolution itself is quite remarkable, and its hero, if you like, is Toussaint Louverture. I haven't got anything to write with, so anyway, you can look it up. Toussaint as in All Saints. I have the first book in Marxism that James read, and he was lucky in this, was Trotsky's History of the Russian Revolution. And Trotsky's history of the Russian Revolution hinges on the relationship of three major actors, Lenin, Trotsky himself, and Stalin. And essentially, James wrote the story of the Haitian Revolution around three figures. His Lenin was Toussaint Louverture, and the other two players were Dessalines and Christophe, and I'm not sure which of them was Trotsky and which was Stalin. But in any case, the Stalin figure was responsible for ensuring the collapse of the revolution and of the Haitian economy. I don't want to go into the story of this book. It is an incredibly vivaciously written book. I mean, the first chapters that explain what slavery was actually like in the Caribbean in the 18th century are quite amazing. I mean, for the way that the anecdotes are told, and the sheer energy of the prose. And he knows that he's writing, as he used to say, with a wind at his back. He felt that the colonial peoples were rising again against their imperial masters, and that they would fight for a different vision of world society in which racial inequality was abolished. And he brought that kind of energy and vision and a sense of forward political movement to his writing of this historical text. I mean, it's hard in the time that I have available to convey the significance of this event, but just to give one an angle that involved the British. I mean, just as in the Russian Revolution, all the principal imperial powers of the region tried to close the revolution down. I mean, I ought to say that this is the only successful slave revolution in history. It's the only time that slaves have arisen and actually taken over control of society. And of course, all the others, the Americans, the English, the Spanish, the French, they all tried to close it down because it set an appalling example to the slaves in the southern United States, in Jamaica, and so forth. So that, for example, the British under Pitt, who at the time were fighting the Napoleonic Wars, sent an army of 60,000 people. 60,000 in the 1790s is a big army, believe me. And they lost them all. I mean, all. 60,000, an army of 60,000 people was destroyed. I mean, a lot of it by illness and starvation, but also in battle with the slave armies. That's to give you some, and it meant that the planned invasion of Spain, Wellington's Spanish War, the Peninsular War, was delayed by 5 years while they raised another army big enough to invade Spain, having lost the one they had in Haiti. That's James is saying, can't you see? I mean, how, first of all, these slaves were animated by the slogans of the French Revolution. They thought they were continuing the French Revolution. There were many people in France who thought so too. And they managed to defeat not only the French in the home territory, but also all the other imperial powers in the region who devoted, I mean, the Spanish invaded from the other half of San Domingo and lost their army too. I mean, it was an amazing event. And this event was simply lost from the historical record.